You want to go up to 68. So who would you fight at 68? Canelo?
If he win, or Charlo, the winner.
That would be crazy.
I want to be 3-time undisputed.
To jump up like that 21 pounds.
What's good, y'all? It's your boy Havoc, final round. Just recently, Terrence Crawford was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he mentioned he would be willing to go all the way up to 168 to fight Canelo Alvarez or Charlo. Now, I hate to tell you that I told you so, but I told you so. It doesn't seem to register when I say things on my YouTube channel or to people that I talk boxing with. It doesn't seem to register. Now, I said in my last video that the fight that actually makes the most sense for Terrence Crawford, and that would probably be a big pay-per-view draw and very entertaining stylistically, would be Canelo Alvarez. It makes the most sense. And it's an entertaining fight, and it would be a big pay-per-view draw, and it would be a hell of a matchup. Makes more sense than fighting Boots. Now, my personal opinion, I would love to see Boots versus Crawford. That's on top of my list. I think it's the most underrated fight in boxing. But unfortunately, reality's reality, and Boots Ennis is not at that. He doesn't have that type of clout yet to command that fight. And I understand why Terrence Crawford wouldn't want to take that fight. And he shouldn't have to take that fight. Okay? He shouldn't have to take that fight at least until Boots draws in more of a pay-per-view crowd and maybe beats a few more high-caliber fighters, which he will do, but I don't know if Terrence Crawford will be around by that time. I mean, that fight is good to go now. That would be a hell of a fight. Watching both of those go head-to-head, I think it would be a very competitive matchup, way more competitive than the Spence fight, okay? Way more competitive than the Spence fight. That is the dream matchup, but that's probably not likely to happen unless all the doors close on Terrence Crawford, which I don't think. I think and Terrence Crawford deserves to do what he wants and fight big-name fighters and make lots of money. It took him so long to get to the top. He's finally gotten there. He deserves to move how he wants to move in a way to where it's going to be very beneficial to him. Why fight Boots Ennis, who has no name, who's high risk and low reward? Doesn't make sense for Terrence Crawford. Okay? Doesn't make sense. In fact, Terrence Crawford, he may wait to fight Boots. Wait for him to build up some clout. And then he may take that fight. Or maybe he never will. But I can't blame Terrence Crawford for not doing it. So the fight that actually makes the most sense, other than Charlo, okay, that's a good fight in itself. But the fight to me that would be, other than Boots Ennis, would be Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez, the draw that would be. It's a good stylistic matchup for Terrence Crawford. You guys say Canelo Alvarez is too big. I call bullshit. You don't seem to learn your lessons from the things I'm telling you. It didn't register to you that Manny Pacquiao, little itty bitty Manny Pacquiao, who conquered 8 divisions in boxing, that size doesn't determine fights. It didn't stop Manny Pacquiao from going up against Margarito, who's a goddamn cheater, and who came into that fight borderline a middleweight. It didn't stop Pacquiao from beating him. It didn't stop Pacquiao from beating Margarito. It didn't stop him from being an 8-division champ. It didn't stop Mike Tyson, who was 5'10" in the heavyweight division in his prime, knocking out heavyweights within 1 to 2 rounds. It didn't stop him. But it still doesn't seem to register with you guys. Size does not determine fights. It's a factor. But look at the core. Look at the substance. Look at does the fighter have technique? Do they have style? Okay? A favorable stylistic matchup. Are they skilled? Look at the substance. And then we can start to take into consideration size. You see, Tyson Fury, when you look at a guy like Tyson Fury, his size matters significantly. But it doesn't start with his size. It starts with the fact that he's a big man who's very skilled, very technical, who can fight in both stances. Okay? Who can come forward, who can fight backward, who can fight in the pocket. You know, I say this all the time about well-rounded fighters. They can do it all. He has every branch in the military. Tyson Fury is that type of guy. And he knows how to use his size and make it an advantage. You go watch the Wilder fight with Fury. He knew how to take his size and impose his will on Deontay Wilder. Getting in clinches with him. Putting all his weight on Wilder's back. Weighing his shoulders down. You know, pushing him back. He knew how to use that weight to his advantage. But he had a solid foundation in being a skilled technical fighter and a high IQ guy. That's why size mattered in that fight. And it really almost didn't. If Tyson Fury didn't have the heart of a champion, if he didn't find it in him to get himself off of the canvas multiple times, size wouldn't even mattered in that fight. But size didn't necessarily determine that fight. It was Tyson Fury's will, and it was his skill, and it was his IQ. And probably out of all those things, it was probably his IQ. Because after that first fight, in the 12th round, when he got nailed to the canvas, he gets back up, and he's trying to win the round, okay, because he wants to win the fight, and he knows he has to get that round back. And he figures out, hey, when I push this guy back, he's uncomfortable. He's not comfortable fighting off his back foot. So he goes, he gets Sugar Hill, and he develops a pressure fighting style. And boom. You know what the rest of the story, how the rest of the story goes. So if anything, even in that fight where you have this mammoth of a guy, Tyson Fury, even in that fight, size didn't necessarily determine it. That wasn't the major factor that helped Tyson Fury win. It was a huge factor, but it wasn't the all-encompassing factor. Canelo Alvarez is not too big for Terence Crawford. That is absolutely ridiculous. Canelo Alvarez isn't even a big guy. That's what's so laughable about the situation. Canelo Alvarez isn't even a big guy. Sure, he's probably more girthier than Terence Crawford. He's more naturally bigger than Terence Crawford. But once again, since when does that determine fights at this type of level of boxing? Let me tell y'all something that's going to bother you. I actually think that Terence Crawford would probably beat Canelo Alvarez. I would not be shocked if Canelo Alvarez, I mean, look, he's got his hands full with Charlo. Charlo is dangerous. Okay? I don't think too highly of Charlo, but Charlo is still a good fighter, and he's dangerous. And Canelo's got his hands full, and Canelo's looks like he's been aging recently. So that's even if Canelo can get past Charlo. But if he does, depending on how he looks, I might predict, depending on how Canelo looks in this fight, I can see myself choosing Terence Crawford by TKO or knockout against Canelo Alvarez. And I'm fully aware that Canelo Alvarez has an iron chin, and as far as I know, he has never been knocked down in his career. Okay, but Terence Crawford, in my estimation, is a different animal. I think Terence Crawford is a stylistic nightmare for Canelo Alvarez. Everything Canelo doesn't want to deal with in a fighter is in Terence Crawford. And then on top of that, you add the power, okay, which he's carrying up in weight classes. He is a problem. He's a problem for a lot of guys right now. And I can genuinely see Terence Crawford going up in weight and beating Canelo Alvarez. And what you got to remember, that not having to cut weight can be a beneficial thing for a fighter. especially if it's draining them and it's beating down their bodies. Canelo, I mean, Terrence Crawford may go up to 168 and he may feel absolutely perfect. Now, it could be a double-edged sword, right? Going up in weight can be a problem for some guys, but it doesn't seem to be too much of an issue for Terrence Crawford. You guys have to look at the nitty-gritty details, the substance. You look at the weight and you say, oh, well, Canelo Alvarez is 168 and Terrence Crawford is 140, blah, blah, blah. And all this bullshit comes out of your mouth and you don't know what you're talking about. And you say, oh, well, Canelo Alvarez wins because he's just bigger. That's elementary shit. And after all the proof you've seen, okay, recently and in the past, you know, stop picking fights based off of size. It's ridiculous. And even if you think Canelo Alvarez is bigger, okay, and let's get this out the way, or Boots Ennis, like, and this kind of falls along the same train tracks, right? Even if you think Boots Ennis doesn't have enough experience, you really don't want to see these fights because of those reasons. You don't want to see Terrence Crawford face Canelo Alvarez because you think Canelo Alvarez is too big. You don't want to see Boots Ennis versus Terrence Crawford because you don't think Boots Ennis has enough big fighters on his resume, enough big name fighters on his resume. That's stupid. I want to see two great fighters get in the ring. I want to see what happens when you put an elite smaller fighter against an elite bigger fighter in a dream matchup. I want to see a young buck with not as much experience as a veteran go up against each other who are both fighters are very talented. Why are boxing fans out of all people, boxing fans are trying to deprive themselves of these great fights? No wonder why we didn't get great fights for a long time, because it's boxing fans dictating what they want to see. Those are great fights, man. I want to see Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Crawford. That is a dream matchup. I don't care what weight. Give it to me. Oh, he's too big. Okay, so that means you don't want to see it? Shut up. Shut up, stupid. He's not too big. Okay? And even if Canelo wins, once again, I said this in the Spence fight, even if in some crazy world that Spence wins the fight, it's not because of his size. It's because he's actually a better boxer than I thought he would be. That's why he wins the fight. And it would be the same reason for Canelo Alvarez. If that matchup ever happened, and Canelo Alvarez went up against Terrence Crawford, and Canelo Alvarez wins, it's because Canelo Alvarez is a superior boxer. He's not going to win that fight just being girthy. He's not. He has to know how to apply. He has to know how to apply that size against his opponent. And he's going to have to do it against a masterclass boxer in Terrence Crawford. So, it's your boy Havoc with Final Round. Comment down below. Like the video. I hate to sound condescending, but it is what it is. You know, subscribe to the channel if you're new. It's your boy Havoc with Final Round. Get at me.